Welcome to Riff on It. I'm Mike Karolyi, and we're going to get right to it. Let's connect with Mike Mushok of Staind and Saint Asonia. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing today?
Doing well. It's good to see you again. Where are you now? So how are we connected to you? What part of the world are you in?
Just at my house.
Oh. Look at all those guitars behind you. So what are you up to like today? You going to be playing all those guitars, working on some songs? What are you doing?
Every one of them. No, I won't touch them.
It's just there for show?
They're just for looks. Yeah.
All right, well, let's connect now with our special guest of the podcast, Sully Erna of Godsmack. Sully, welcome to Riff on It.
What's up, man?
It's good to have you, man, and thank you for joining us. Now, I met you way back in 98 or so, I guess. I was with WCCC in Hartford, and we had you...
That's where I know your face from. I knew it from somewhere.
We had you come in and do a show in this little club in East Hartford, and, you know, we knew the song Whatever was huge because it was just never died on the radio. It was just request after request. We couldn't play it enough. But when we really saw the impact of Godsmack is when we had you come in and play this club, and there was a line down the block to get in to see you guys, and it was just, there was an electricity with not only that show, but with the band. And it's just
and then you realize it's Stained.
But I'm curious how did the two of you guys meet? So that's when I met you in the beginning, and Mike and I, we were at dinner in a place in Hartford. But how did the two of you first meet?
I remember Northampton at a Warped Tour. There was like a local stage, and it was probably about the exact same time because you guys were getting played on AAF every other second. I mean, the song was just always on. And I think you probably got signed. You must have got signed right around then, right? Because I think we had just gotten signed in 98 as well.
Yeah. June of 98 is when we signed our deal.
Yeah. And you had your record done already. They just put out what you did, right?
Yeah, we put a record out in 97, which was called All Wound Up, and it was just a homemade CD because at that time CDs were becoming relevant. Like our demo was really on a cassette tape, and then we started seeing all these little silver discs everywhere, and we're like, oh, that's what people are doing now, so we need to put our shit on a silver disc. And then so we went and we recorded 10 or 11 tracks onto a CD just so we could shop it, really. And then right. But Whatever was, the funny thing was, Whatever hadn't even been written yet. We literally like released a CD under ourselves out of the trunk of our car, just selling CDs. And then later, Rocco from WAAF at that time had picked up the song Keep Away, and he was playing it on WAAF. And then we wrote Whatever. And so Whatever he felt like this is the one. So he started pushing that. And when he did, and it started to get real traction, we went and printed a single on a CD, and we elastic banded it to the CD that was already out in Newbury Comics. And so literally, like when you bought the CD, you would get this additional CD in a white paper, thing where elastic banded to it. There's like a free single. And that's how this became, on the record.
See, that's how it used to be back in the day. So like WAAF, we would do it at WCCC. We had some liberty to play these bands, and kind of happened the same way with Mike and Staind. We put the record on the radio, and then let the listeners decide how it would go from there. Is it much different from the band experience now, as far as trying to get on the radio, or the impact of radio for you guys?
You're asking me or Mike?
Let's go with Mike.
Let's go with Mike.
I don't know. I mean,
let's go with Sully.
I mean, yeah, it's way different. You know what I mean? To me, it seems way. Leave me out of this. No.
Wait, is that a vape pen you have in your hand?
Oh, it's just a regular pen. I have a vape pen, dude.
I know we're gonna be smoking, because if we are, I got things. Anyways.
When did you start doing that?
Shh. Your fucking boyfriend got me into this shit. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my god.
Look at the things we're learning here on Riff on It.
Aaron, we went and did 30 days together, and now I'm smoking weed. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Mike. Come on, man. Tell them the story. Tell them why it's different.
Story. I don't know why it's different, because it's different. First off, there's no radio stations anymore that play rock music.
That's true. No rock radio anyways. Plenty of radio stations.
Yeah, there's no rock radio at all anymore.
It's either country or it's like, nosotros tenemos más influencia con ellos que tú tienes.
Or it's the Christian rock, like what took over your station and AAF.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. So what happened with WAAF in the last year or so happened with me and WCCC probably 7 years ago or so, where Christian radio took over and we were all out of jobs. So we all had to kind of reinvent ourselves and move forward from there. So it's different from the radio perspective too. But I just know back in the day, bands had an opportunity like that to get their music played in a more organic fashion and then come in and do shows and stuff.
Yeah, but plus we had to really hustle, you know what I mean? Like me and Mike and Aaron and the guys in Godsmack and his guys in Staind, you know, we're like kind of one of the last of the generations that were actually out there flyering cars and like, you know, making phone calls to club owners and playing for a case of beer on a Tuesday night with, you know, the bartender and the janitor watching us. And, you know, those kind of days where like you really had to kind of get motivated besides working a full-time job to pay your rent or whatever. You had to be out there hustling and creating your own buzz and really pushing one person at a time to come see your band. And nowadays with the internet, because that was right on the cusp, by the way, of the internet becoming the thing.
But I also, you said one thing that I remember when you said going to Newberry Comics, because I remember we had our CDs, there were record stores back then, or stores that sold music, you know, and I remember going there and talking to managers and seeing if we could leave a few CDs just to sell somewhere, you know what I mean? And going back and checking the stock and making sure that they were selling them. And, you know, we had some stores that sold great, you know what I mean? So it was, I remember doing all of those things.
Yeah. It was on a very ground level kind of, you know, mission that you had to be on, and you had to be super dedicated to do it. But then again, people may think of it now and go, wow, that's crazy because you can just put your shit out on the internet. But there wasn't internet back then. That's the point. We didn't have anything to compare it to. This is the only way we knew how to do it. And at least in our generation, we got introduced to cassettes and CDs. You know, before us and those artists, you know, the Led Zeppelins and that whole genre, that, you know, you had to just be out there playing and then hope you could get a record deal. But when you got a record, you had a record. Like that thing. Imagine carrying around a milk crate full of albums. Like, that's not fun either, right? So at least we have a CD you can just like mail with a picture or something like that. Right. But that's really, it was right on the cusp of the internet becoming the thing, because I remember the big lawsuit with Metallica and Napster and all that. And that was right when all of us were in our bands, shopping our bands, trying to get a deal. I mean, us and Staind were playing clubs together before either one of us were signed, if I remember correctly. You know, we would go to Springfield to try to widen our fan base, you know, because we were starting to do well in the New England area, but we wanted to continue to like broaden the circle. And we would go out there, and those guys were red hot in their area. So, you know, we would open for them in these clubs. I think Infinity was some club in
Infinity. Yep, that was it. Yeah. And we'd try to go to Boston and do the same thing. And listen, I mean, ultimately for Staind, that's what led to us getting signed. Is that I think I said this to you before, Mike, was that there was a band in Connecticut that used to open for us all the time, and they asked us to open for them for Limp Bizkit. And that's what led to us getting a record deal.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So clearly you had a passion for this, and it was that drive that pushed you beyond what some other bands may have done, you know, when they were trying to, you know, get their band started, and then maybe they got married, or maybe they got this job and they couldn't focus on the band. But you guys had this drive that got you to that next level and really was able to showcase your talent. What I'm kind of curious about is, after you got the record deal and you got that first tour under your belt and all those firsts that happened, at what point does it go from being this something you've always dreamed about to now it's a machine, it's a job, you have certain things you got to live up to and expectations from labels and managers. Where does that go from that fan who wants to be in a band to now it's just this big machine with people to answer to? Sully? Day one?
Listen, here, I'll tell you one thing. So here's the thing that I've learned is that I've learned a long time ago that if you want to do this for a living, the first thing that you need to lose is the ego. And the second thing you have to realize is that if you're going to be an entertainer in this business, then you better damn well learn how to entertain, because the days of like being, depressed and slouched over a mic with a flannel shirt and a bunch of power can lights are over. You have to really like work for it. The expectations are a lot higher nowadays. Society has changed so drastically that, people want to go enjoy the music that they love, but they also are paying good money to go see a band, and you need to be able to take that seriously. You can't go in there with like the I don't give a shit attitude, and if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. That's cool. I mean, by the way, it's the punk rock attitude, right? But good luck, because you'll be in the clubs, if that, for the rest of your life. For me, I wanted to make a little bit more of my life with this. So I had to just learn a lot as I grew in this industry. And I know that for me is, one of the biggest things is that, I take this seriously, but I also, have been doing this for a long time now. And there is no like set study on it where you can just pass that on to the next generation or pass it on to the young bands these days, because the way that we got there is much different than the way bands are getting there today. So, it's just it's a whole different ball game when it comes to, how you get there, what you can do to, be successful at this and that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. I
want to say that, I mean, for me, Sully, I mean, in playing with you through the years, I mean, I've seen the progression too. I think you're one of the best frontmen out there. I mean, I think you do an amazing job on the live show, for sure. The way you work the crowd, the way you talk to them, the way you interact. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, you guys put on such a great show.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just an automatic. Not everybody can do it. So how much of that is just your personality, or how much of it is something that you had to learn to do and kind of perfect that craft as the front man?
Well, yeah, see, the thing for me is that there was a lot of learning along the way, but all that learning was really me trying to figure out how to be an entertainer, how to be a front man, how to entertain a big audience. As the band grew and the crowds got bigger, it was important for me to stay in control of that kind of magnitude, right? Because it changes. If you're doing well, there's a lot of bands that don't have that opportunity and it fades out before they can get to the level. But I also think a lot of that they take on themselves and they just get irresponsible about the responsibility you have as an artist, right? So for me, I had to learn along the way, going from a drummer to a front man. And I didn't know what I was doing at first. I'll be the first one to admit I couldn't sing that well. I had an idea of what I wanted the band to sound like, but I wasn't there yet. I had no developed vocal cords yet. And I certainly didn't know how to entertain, right? Because now I went from behind a drum set to being in front of the mic and you're exposed, right? So there's nothing to hide behind when the band's sucking. Right? Yeah. I used to be able to hide behind the toms and just play like this. I'm like, but now I'm the guy that has to take the heat, right? And so, but I would go back and this is what I mean about not being lazy. You have a responsibility if you're going to do this. And if you want to do it great and continue to grow, you can't just get freakish success and expect to know what you're doing. So I would look at the frontmen that paved the way for me, the frontmen that I respected and appreciated the most and entertained me, the Steven Tylers, the James Hetfields, the Lane Staleys, even though that was in a much different way. But I would kind of take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and start to kind of apply that towards, doing better in front of the microphone. Over the years, I just learned how to relax more, and I learned how to just let my personality come through, to kind of echo what you were saying, Mike, is just, you kind of learn to just be yourself again and bring the fun back into playing, which is why we got into this gig in the first place. We didn't get into this gig to be accountants, and we didn't get into this gig to be record label, suits. And we started doing this because we used to like drinking beers and playing and inviting girls to sit on the couch while we're in the garage jamming. And that's why we do this, right? And so it comes full circle after a while. And thankfully, it was realized to, like, this doesn't have to be so much work in a sense of performing. This really just has to be about get up there, play the songs that you worked hard on and that you love and you feel are the ones that represent your brand the best. But go out there and have a good time with the audience, because that's what they're there for. They're there to have a couple of cocktails and enjoy the music and dance and do whatever they do. And so it's important that you just are able to let loose and just kind of come back to being who you are as a personality. And that's kind of where I've gotten to in my careers, trying to get rid of the pressure of what I'm going to do every night. I just go out there and host a party.
It's a good party too. And I would imagine it's a never ending process. Like every tour, every cycle that goes through, you're probably continuing to work, evolve, and develop, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know for me. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me switch to this, because I talked to Mike about a month or so ago about the songwriting process, and Mike says he's got like 30 songs written that he's kind of worked out the arrangements on and everything. Then he'll take them to Aaron, and they'll go from there to craft the album. What are the similarities between the two of you in your creation process, writing new music? How do you go about it? So Mike, pick up where I left off about you're working on those riffs, you're working on the arrangements, and you go from there.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, to me, it's just about trying to come up with something that, Aaron's going to be happy to sing over, or Adam, or whoever I'm writing for, at the time. And to me, it's a quantity thing, I mean, the more that you have to choose from, hopefully something out of that's going to be good. Right. So you just, kind of keep going. If there's something that you stumble upon that you like or catches your ear, I always just throw it down and record it, and, kind of go back and listen to those ideas and where they were, and see what I like, and kind of take it from there. So, and then develop them from there.
And so, Mike, for you, what is the timetable, if there is a specific one, for like the next Staind album? Let's say if you're working on that now, how long before we have like a finished product?
That's a great question. It's been 10 years since we've done a record. So, right. I mean, it's, yeah.
10 years.
2011 was the last Staind record.
That's very, very, very irresponsible to your fans, young man.
You got to talk to your boyfriend, dude. I mean, he had to go to the country, and you know what I mean? So it's like, what am I going to do? I mean, I would have done, so I'm ready. So, he's got to go out and do a tour with you. If he wasn't doing that, we could be doing a record. So it's
your fault.
Thanks, bro.
My fault, of course. It isn't my fault. Out in the world, I used to have this problem with, with my ex. Like I'd come home, I'd be like, everything was I was the guy that, I've been nominated for 4 Grammys and won a Billboard award, and yet I come home and I can't fucking close the dishwasher the right way.
Well, there is a correct process to it. Apparently.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You didn't push the right button. Don't use the long cycle. Fucking use the turbo cycle. You use too much water.
Sully, tell me about your experience.
The extra gallon of water. It's okay.
Sully, tell me about your experience touring with Aaron. So the two of you went out and did some shows, and what was that like for you, getting back out, performing again, and doing it with Aaron Lewis?
Yeah, I actually didn't even know if I wanted to do it at first. And me and Aaron talked about it quite a bit. He's out there, he's always working and trying to keep things going. But in the year of COVID, it was just a little bit concerning about, not that I wasn't one of the people freaked out over COVID. I was just more concerned about how does this work? Because I know the world isn't ready to kind of really be around large crowds yet and that close and contact and whatever. So my concern was like, how does this work? How cool is it going to be for us? How cool is it going to be for the people? And so we gave it a shot, and I think we were maybe one of the first and only bands or acts, I should say, that was out there even trying to pave the way and show other artists and crews how we could work, considering that there was a lot of them that were out of work and needed money. And so for that reason, I was really happy we did it. And it wasn't terrible. It was, drive-ins. It was, like race tracks. They were able to just do kind of like carpooling and keeping people distant, even if it was like banquet tables that were 6 or 10 feet apart in like an open field and things like that. So it wasn't terrible. And I actually really remember feeling relieved and appreciated being out there, because I needed live music just as much as the people that were coming to see the live performances needed it. But the bottom line was the world isn't quite ready yet, right? So there's still that lag of some people are still freaked out by it. It's going to be a little bit longer before we have some kind of sense of normalcy again. People are getting back, getting ready to get back out there and try to figure this out and do it in a controlled way, in a safe way. But for me, I just thought, well, it's not right for me yet. And I certainly wouldn't put Godsmack in that situation. It was great for the acoustic, intimate storytelling performance, because that's a more of a seated kind of venue anyways. I can't see, bands, full rocking bands like, Godsmack or a Buck Cherry or a Metallica or whatever going out there and trying to like do what we normally do in that kind of setting. But at the same time, we have to start somewhere, right? We're all getting our legs back here. And so it was a good experience in that way. Love hanging out with Aaron. He's funny. We play off of each other really well. And the shows went over good, but it was really just about testing the waters and understanding how this can work if we need to be out there.
So I live in New York State. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just there's good collaboration between you guys too, right? I mean, every night you get up and play some songs together, and at the end of it.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We were on stage at the same time every night, the whole night. And, I would either jump in on one of the songs he was doing, or we actually did a version of Outside. I played the piano and we did a pianoed version of that while he sang it. So there was a little bit of like spontaneity every night. But the best part was just we would play off of each other, and there was nothing scripted. There was no set list. It was just like we walk out there, put our drink on, put a guitar on, and then we look at each other and we go, who's going first? And, I'd play a song and we'd bounce back and forth, or we'd just find each other breaking each other's balls all night. And there was some really funny moments that happened. I remember one of them actually, Aaron kind of looked over at me with his little cocky smile and he was like, yeah, so, I'm going to do a song. Because all night he would be doing country shit. And I'd be like over the mic going, play a Staind song, Aaron. They really want to hear Staind. And he's just like, well, yeah, right after this. I go, no, but play a Staind song. I want to hear Staind. And then, finally he'd look at me and he'd give me this wink and he'd go, okay, so this one went number one. And he'd play the song, right? And then, right after that, I'd sit like at the piano and do like one of our hits. And I go, oh, speaking of number ones, so it was that kind of little banter it was just fun, friendly conversation.
Yeah.
See, I think that's great. And that must take you back to even in the beginning when you guys started out playing in clubs or whatever. There was some more spontaneity to it. And as you get bigger, there's production and there's lighting and there's things you've got to kind of have in a controlled environment. Does this open the door, Mike or Sully, either of you, for like now that you've experienced that, Sully, again in this setting, does that open the door for that for Godsmack or Mike for Staind to have some more spontaneity in the live show?
I like you said though, in those settings, I mean, it's a pretty controlled environment just because you're out there. Like I know, like there's been times that like, oh, let's add this song into the set, and the guy's like, oh, I don't have any lights programmed for that song. You can't do it tonight. Like, oh, just hit some buttons, man. We got all these lights. I mean, you can't. You know what I mean? Right? I mean, so it's hard to do that in that setting. You know what I mean? Oh, I don't have any video program for that song. You can't. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's definitely tougher.
We fixed that problem, I will say, a long time ago from hearing those exact complaints Mike's talking about from your LDs and people like that you want to just throw something into the set and then they're like, oh, well, we didn't program for that. So I make sure now whenever we're programming a show that we have, the songs that we know are kind of imprinted into the set are going to have more of a sculptured light show to it. But we also make sure that they have a push page, just
Generic.
something that push buttons, because I'm not doing shows like that anymore. I may have my songs that I want to play in the night, but I know I'm always going to just bust out a cover or do something fun, because when you feed off the audience, things just happen sporadically and you want to roll with it. And you don't want to be limited to what the crew is telling you, you can do or what you can't do, especially when we're writing the fucking checks. You know what I'm saying?
Well, speaking of finances, so I live in New York now, and Governor Cuomo just announced that outdoor venues can open to a 20% capacity.
Fuck that guy.
But he did say this. So just doing some quick math, which I'm terrible at, but at SPAC, for example, the Performing Arts Center in Saratoga, 20% is about 5,000 people. Is that a financially prudent way to go about? Could you guys go and play a place like that, knowing you could only sell a maximum of 5,000 tickets? Is that financially feasible?
I think it's just hard for everybody to make that work. Promoters, bands. I mean, it's just, it depends. I mean, you would see a different in production what you're coming to see probably, because, it's hard to make that work when you're going to a venue that size. Can you do it? Yeah, you can do it. But would it be different? Yeah, it'd be different what you're probably used to seeing.
So now, Sully, that you're done occupying Aaron's time, he'll get back with Mike and write those songs that they've been waiting on for 10 years. But for Sully, for you, what's the process with Godsmack? Where are you at in creating new music? Have you been doing that throughout the pandemic? What's the status with Godsmack and new music?
We just started writing again, like literally a month ago, not even. I had bought a property down in Florida recently because I just wanted to get away from all this nonsense that, is going around the country. And I don't even want to go down that whole conversation right now, but I've learned a lot from this whole political nonsense and crap that's happened with COVID about just people and the way everyone's behaved during it. And I just wanted to kind of like check out for a little bit and go focus on myself, my life, my family, and my band, who's doing great, by the way. So I bought a place in Florida, and I actually moved the studio that we had up here in the New England area down to Fort Myers area. And that's where we've been working. So it's been going good. We have probably, 12 songs written in the last 3 weeks. And obviously, as Mike and everyone else knows, though, a song isn't a song until the lyrics and melodies are done. So I just started diving into that, and I came home to take a little break from the band so I could literally catch up and start writing some melodies to some of these instrumentals that we have. So, but our thought process in general is just, we never, by the way, even last March when COVID started really becoming a thing and they were starting to shut down the country, I knew right away, there was bands that were like, oh, we're going to push our tour back until the fall, or we're going to go next spring. And I don't know why I knew this, but I just knew this thing was going to make a mess. So we immediately were like, okay, we're shut down and we're going to not even think about 2020. And 2021 is even shady and maybe a possibility by fall, but I still think that it's not going to be quite ready yet. So we decided to just focus on this year being in one place, working on music, with no agenda, with no timeline, with no even plan on what kind of music we're going to write. It could be, piano and acoustic ballads. It could be vintage rogue rock. It could be a big fat, heavy rock song. Like, I don't even know. We just said, let's just go play and be happy playing, together, and we'll just jam, and whatever happens. We'll throw it in different folders and we'll sort it out later. And that's just going to be our agenda for the rest of the year. We plan on trying to get a record finished by the end of the year, maybe 2. We might do like a specialty album and a big, full-length rock record, and then release it sometimes in the first quarter of 22. But
hey, one thing that I'm thinking of right now is that
you have a song. You have a song. Tell me you have a song you want me to fucking put on Godsmack.
Oh, we could do that too, but that wasn't it. No, I was going to take it the next step and say Mass Chaos 2.
Oh, how
Yes.
about that? Are you guys going to release in 22?
I don't know when it's going to be. I mean, I don't know what our timeline is. We're kind of the same. We just, listen to us. It's been a long time since we've done a record. It's got to be great, whatever we do that comes out,
Yeah.
But there's going to be a record, and we're on similar paths. I mean,
Yeah.
We should, talk about possibly playing a show or 30 together.
Yeah, here's the deal, man. People are going to get out there, and you're going to start hearing about bands coming out this year and playing shows, right? And I'm not discouraging any of that, because I think we need to do that, because we have to figure it out.
Hey, Sully, I know on the last record, you guys, I think it was the first time you started using doing some co-writes with people. Was that the first time you guys did that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess technically it was. I had done one co-write before that when I was doing the solo record, the first solo record. And
Yep.
Ironically, if you want to hear something, I can just drop a name and brag real quick. When we were out with Metallica, he became one of Stallone's lead editors in his movies, and he was doing the Expendables. And so Paul had called me up, and he goes, hey, I got an opportunity for you. Sly is looking for a certain song to open up the credits with, and, blah, blah, blah. It's like a big deal thing. And, would you be willing to get on the phone with him? And it started like that. And then we talked a little bit, and he was kind of telling me about the storyline. And then I actually flew out there and met with him. And I went into his office, and he was a really nice guy, super humble, and just great guy. And he goes, hey, I was thinking about my character, and I had these words, and he started showing me these words that he wrote, which actually became the first verse in the song. And that was the first time I ever co-wrote anything with anyone. So that was a really, really cool experience. And of course, I'm such a huge fan, because
Of course, yeah.
there's a bigger action hero in the world than Sylvester Stallone.
No, totally. I still watch the Rocky movies.
Yeah. Oh my God. Me too. Yeah.
Right?
Rambo,
Yeah.
Rocky, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but on this last record, I wanted to go out there and just, explore a little bit. I mean, the band's been around enough now that I wanted to see how other really good songwriters envision Godsmack, how they heard us, like what they thought we could be, since they're really great writers themselves and current. So I went and explored a little bit with like Clint Lowry from Seven Dust. I went and worked with John Feldman from he did like Blink 182 and 5 Seconds of Summer and those kind of bands.
Goldfinger too, yeah.
Yeah, and Eric Ron, who I ended up doing Bulletproof with. That's my daughter, by the way, Skylar.
Hi.
Um,
Now, didn't Eric Ron produce the record too?
Yeah, well, I started with just a co-write, but then I really enjoyed what he was doing, and not only how we wrote together, but I really thought he was talented when it came to the production he was even putting down for a basic demo. After we would get done the co-write session, and he would send me a copy of it the next day. It was like, wow, this thing really sounds good, even though it's just kind of, electronic drums at the moment and just kind of carving out the skeleton of the song. And so I started thinking, he's probably another one of these young, talented guys that needs an opportunity to do a big record. And I was hoping it was going to be a big record, but at least give him a chance to work with an artist at our level. Because at that time, he hadn't worked with anyone that big yet. And so it was just it all just kind of fell into play. But I learned a lot from it too, because I've learned that some of my strengths in writing, and me and Mike went through this actually not too long ago with a song we did called The Hunted, is that, a lot of times as artists, we get stuck in our own patterns and our own formats. We keep writing the same style riffs, or we have the same melodies that we hum. And it takes you sometimes to go with another artist and another person who's really good at their art. And sometimes they can just sing you a little bit of a melody or give you a different kind of arrangement that you would have normally not have done on your own. And it just opens up the floodgates. It just kind of brings you into like thousands of new ideas. And I learned that on the solo record because I was working with musicians that played at a much higher level than me, classically trained musicians and percussionists from Ireland and classically trained cellists from Bulgaria and, blues artists and classical pianists and whatever. But through that process, I felt like we had created some really special music and difference, something that I don't think I could have written completely on my own. And so I wanted to take that process, that learning experience, and bring it into Godsmack and go out and explore some other writers and see how they envisioned us and see how, they heard the band and where they thought we could be going. And we got some great songs out of it. Legends Rise came out of it, and Bulletproof, and a song called Eye of the Storm that I wrote with Clint Lowry.
Mm-hmm.
And you could definitely hear a difference from previous albums. There was an audible difference in that. And it's intriguing to hear how the songwriting process goes for something new. But I'm also curious how you go about choosing songs that you cover. So like Mike, you guys in Staind have covered Tool and Pink Floyd and others before. How do you go about making that choice, whether it's for something you're going to record or if it's something you're going to perform, like Sully did Rocky Mountain Way at the Aaron Lewis and Friends show? How do you choose those songs?
I mean, for us, there's been a lot of different ways. A lot of it's times the songs that we just really like, you know what I mean, and want to try. We've jammed on them, like, oh, let's just play it, and that's kind of how things have worked their way into sets for us. But yeah, we did that benefit thing. That was a lot of fun, getting together. I always love doing that, just getting together with other people and friends and just playing cover songs. I mean, that's what you guys did with Aaron probably when you guys were on the tour. It's very similar to that. I mean, but that was fun in Northampton.
So, Lee, I may ask you this. I know that your dad joined you on stage, at least at one show. I saw it at Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut. What was that moment like for you, your dad on stage with you, and sharing your craft?
Yeah, it was a really, really special moment that I will remember for the rest of my life because, me and my dad's journey as when I was younger wasn't so good. We went through a lot of hard times, and there was years and years and years where we didn't speak and we didn't have a good relationship growing up. He was, an Italian Sicilian that came like right off the boat from Sicily back in the 50s. And he was just, didn't speak English. He was young, he had me and my sister very young. And so there was a lot of he was a hard person to grow up with, but he was young, he didn't know how to be a dad yet. He didn't know how to be a parent. So there was a lot of missing years there was my point. And, when we finally rehabilitated that relationship and just got things back feeling good again, and I was working on this second solo record, this song kind of came about that really I felt was good for a horn section. And when I thought about putting horns on the record, my dad popped into my mind because he's been a trumpet player since he was a kid. That's been his, first instrument or whatever. He's the one that got me started in music. And it was just a good opportunity to knock the dust off his old trumpet and get him playing again. And he was really excited to do it. He was really he was really excited. He didn't really play anymore at that point. He's kind of had been retired from actually playing, but he was really excited to do it. And, I got all the sheet music for him and charted everything out. And then he learned the song, and I would go over there for lunch at times and visit. And, my stepmom would be like, shh, come on in, And then I'm like, where is he? She's like, he's in the room over there. And I could hear him practicing, And so I'd sneak in and peek in the door. And it was just really cool. The whole thing was cool. And then, he played on the record, and that was great to have him there and put him in a studio. And I have all the video footage on that as well. But to actually get him in that live setting, to get him, introduce him up on stage in front of all those people at Mohegan Sun, it was a really special moment. I'm glad we have it on video. I'm glad we got to capture it. And, as you guys know, the world can change like that. And we never know from day to day who's going to be in our lives and who isn't. So that's just a memory that I'll be proud to have, when I'm on my deathbed one day.
It's a great story.
One thing that I admire about Staind and Godsmack, beyond the music that we've all enjoyed for these years, that you've taken your success and you've done other things with it. Like, Mike, you did your charity shows at Foxwoods in Connecticut. And, Sully, of course, has, your association with the Scars Foundation. As a matter of fact, the last time I saw you, we gave you one of those big novelty checks for a donation at Mohegan Sun. I'm curious, is it something you've always had as a plan? Like, man, if I get to a certain level where I can speak about causes that I'm near and dear to, that's something I want to do with the success of my art. Mike, is that something you always had kind of in the back of your mind to do?
I think it's just one of those things that once you get to a certain point, you realize how fortunate you are to be there. And, the ability to be able to give back even just a little bit is just, just makes you feel good. I think it's just a great way. And listen, especially like if it's playing a show, that's easy. You know what I mean? So it's like, if we can do that and, it can help benefit some people. I just think it's, great, easy way of being able to give back. Whenever I'm asked to do anything like that, it's like, yeah, of course, you know what I mean? So, just glad that we can do that.
The guys here at Riff on It were talking about the Godsmack video for Unforgettable. And so I was watching it on the ride here safely. And I have to tell you, there's something about the way that song plays and how you incorporated all those kids. Watching that video every time, even talking about it, I get choked up. I think it is so cool that you included all those kids, and it's such an encouraging thing to get our teenagers, our high school students, whatever age they are, involved in music. And you really kind of pulled it all together in that video. What was the premise behind all that?
That was such a I don't even know how to say it, such a lucky thing to be able to have happen. When I tell you that video was shot on the last week of February 2020.
Wow.
It was that close to probably not being a video.
Wow.
Because, again, we were just learning about COVID. I think there was one case in the States up in Seattle or something like that that we were just announcing. I remember just starting to hear about China and all this stuff, and it wasn't really a thing yet, but we were kind of being alerted about something had got out here. And I had just came back from a 10-day vacation with my daughter and two of her friends. We went out to California, me and my girlfriend and them. And I was starting to hear a little bit about it then, but we had already had the video treatment done. We had already had, pretty much everything lined up. I had worked for well over a month, maybe 2 months of contacting teachers, charities I've worked with, speakings that I've done at different middle schools and music schools and things like that, and just had this whole idea of a video I wanted to do. And so it was kind of all put in place, and I went on vacation and I polished the treatment and we made all our calls and blah, blah, blah. And when we got back, we got in there, we shot it. It went flawlessly. Like, it really was to be able to control 300 kids and their teachers and all that stuff. It wasn't easy, but like everyone, we did our due diligence ahead of time, and we just really was able to kind of do it fairly painlessly. And then right after that, the country got shut down. So it was so close to never becoming a video, and I'm so grateful to have it. And what a blessing to have a video like that to kind of represent exactly what the world was right before everything went sideways. How important music is in people's lives, how important it is to be, in contact with each other as humans, to be in groups, to be able to touch and feel and communicate with each other and be next to each other. And it's just so ironic that, it was the last thing we did right before we got shut down. And I mean, can you imagine even trying to ask permission to do a video like that when after COVID hit? They would have been like, yeah, no.
Yeah, and it's so great that you got it done, because it was such a great idea and what a great concept. And I mean, it comes across amazing in the video. So it's awesome that you're able to get that completed and finished. Right now, what school did you guys go to? Was that up by you?
Well, it was a combination of a lot of schools and students throughout New England. I mean, they came in from Berklee College of Music. They came in from middle schools. They came in from high schools. We just rallied up the best musicians that we could at first, and then opened the door to everyone else who can just sing or have some kind of a voice, because it was going to be a big gang vocal thing anyways. So it was really like a 2-year journey, because we started with just bringing in the best singers that this middle school had to offer at first, when I had wrote the track and wanted to have a kid chorus on the song. And then those kids along the way, we invited them to do some live shows. So those 15 or 17 kids or whatever came up on stage and sang with us live. And then it transitioned to, me taking them on a field trip to New York and showing them the record industry and the business side of it.
Okay.
And all the ins and outs, like all that was just shot over time to just kind of say, hey, yeah, if this is what you want to do for a living and this is where you're heading, like, let us show you not only the glamour side of it and the tour buses and the backstage and all that, but let us also show you like the work involved in the business side of it. And, in hopes that they'd be inspired to continue to do this for a living. And I really do feel, and we've gotten so many letters from some of those kids that sang on the record on how they've really taken their musical career to the next level and taken it really seriously now that they've kind of got their feet wet a little bit through that experience. So when we did the video and we invited hundreds of them, it was just another way to inspire these kids, to break them out of that classroom and studying with a professor and doing the regimented musical theory kind of thing, to just go like, hey, in the end, it's just rock and roll, right? It's just music, like have fun with it, because that's what it's here for. It's an outlet for your soul. It's an outlet to be therapeutic and to create and vent. But it's supposed to make you happy, and you're supposed to enjoy it, and it shouldn't be work all the time. So I think that was a big thing with the video, but it was a great experience. I really, really cherished that whole video, man. It was such a pleasure working with all those kids and seeing their reaction to, doing this thing at a bigger level.
No, it's so awesome at the end, and everybody's in that arena and just playing the song. I mean, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, what was it like being in the arena when everybody's playing, all those drummers are playing, and everybody's
dude,
making their noise?
It was crazy, man. And I was the one, I was the guy that had to coordinate 30 plus drummers to play in sync. And like the drum fills, everything had to be perfect. Every crash had to be on point, because they were like locking into the video with us and Shannon. And so we had to have, rehearsals and everything, and even sending people the song and like getting descriptive with them on like, pay attention, do not come in here lazy, like do your homework, talk to your instructors, whatever you need to do, but you need to learn this song note for note if you're going to be in this video as a drummer. Because listen, as a guitar player, as a singer, you can open your mouth and mouth the words, but you don't even have to be singing, because there's another 290 kids behind you singing. Or a guitar player could just be strumming and standing in time. But a drummer, you can't miss that visual, right? You got to be on point. So that was a lot of work, man, but it was fun. And it was really cool, man. I had a good time. Those kids are special, and we still keep in touch every now and then.
That's cool.
That's awesome,
there's a
man.
drummer actually that I'm friends with on Facebook because my son's a drummer, so there's a connection there. His name is Riley, and he ended up in that video. There's a nice shot of him just crashing the cymbal at one point, but yeah, and he, from what I can tell, it was just an inspiring situation and opportunity for him. So on behalf of those kids and like my son, thanks for doing that. That's,
by the way, they have it, right? They have that memory because right after that, their world shut down.
right.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
like, that's just, I'm glad that they got to experience that because that's how we need to be again. We need to make sure that we're not, restricting ourselves from being in contact, within human touch and stuff like that. So, music is one of those things that joins us and brings us all together. And so I'm glad that they're able to share that memory too and know that like, this is what, the world has always been and what it needs to be again and needs to get back through. We need to get through these challenging times and back to normalcy.
So I got to say this. There's a few thoughts just pumped in my head. So all those kids are in that arena or that school or whatever, and they're working with you and the band. That's got to be really surreal for them. And you also mentioned for you, you're sitting in a room with Sylvester Stallone writing a song. That's very surreal. Success in the arts will lead you to these surreal moments. Mike, have you had any moments where you find yourself in a room and like for example, when I was like 20 years ago, I found myself in an elevator with Johnny Cash. Here's a guy that I idolized as a kid, and he's right next to me in the elevator. That's weird. Mike, have you had those Stallone, Johnny Cash moments?
I remember the first time when we first started touring, and we got the Korn tour, and I remember walking into that arena. And it was like the first time we were playing an arena, and all the road cases that said Korn on them were right there. And I mean, we used to cover Korn songs and playing in bars, and that was one of those moments. One time on stage, I look over and Jimmy Page is on the side of the stage.
Oh.
That's one of those moments.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's been a couple.
Just only Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Before this, Mike said, "Hey, ask something where I can mention Jimmy Page."
That's a big one, man. Fucking
Yeah.
Jimmy Page. Do you know, I even know some stuff about him that was really surprising that I've heard, because I know that he got offered a couple of times to do some kind of like celebrity jam band thing with some, huge artists. And he turned it down because he's intimidated, I hear. He's afraid to get on stage. He feels like he's not good enough to play with some of these other artists, like, The Edge from U2, or like, Johnny Depp, or like Joe Perry. And I'm going, what the fuck? You're Jimmy Page. What are you talking about?
Really? That's weird.
Like, yeah.
He did that documentary with The Edge and Jack White, right? They had that documentary.
This might get loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's insane, because I mean, he's just a legend.
Page. It's Jimmy
Yeah.
Page. That's all you gotta say. Jimmy Page.
That's all you got to say.
Legend.
I've never heard a guy write so many fucking riffs that everything's a hook in every part of the song. Always
I
a
know.
hook. Like, I'm just the hook master. I'll tell you real quick. Here's a funny one you guys will laugh about. This is one of my ultimate. I had a couple geek moments in my life, but this was a super geek moment, man. I had never shut down like this in my life, but I was working on the Faceless album in North Miami. The band decided to move down there, get away from girlfriends, wives, distractions, whatever, and just work on a record. And so we were working on the Faceless album, and right around that time, I was reading Neil Peart's book called Ghost Rider, which was his basically his journal that he wrote after he had this tragedy where he had lost his wife and his daughter within a 10-month period. His dog passed away. His best friend went to jail for dealing weed. Like, it was this horrible time. And he got on his motorcycle and he drove 55,000 miles in 14 months in search of a reason to live, because he was just having a hard time with this whole thing. So this book was really nothing more than his journal entries, and I was just fascinated by it, and I was reading this. And in the midst of that, the song Serenity had came about. Tony had this acoustic guitar piece, and I wrote the song. So the song was based on the experience that I had reading Neil Peart's book and the experience that, the events that had happened in that book through him. So, and then I don't know if I manifested it or what, but like within, I don't know, a couple of weeks of us starting to lay down the pre-pro on the song, we got a call from this guy named Mike, who was Neil's personal assistant and pretty much Rush's security director. And they were like, hey, he had contacted our assistant at the time, who he knew, they were friends. And he said, hey, we're in town and Rush is here and whatever, and we'd like to invite you guys to the show. And, we heard that you guys were here recording or whatever. So me and Shannon were like, fuck yeah, we're going. So we went down to the venue, and, we're standing, they put us at the light board, and they left us pass or whatever. And so it was just me and Shannon. And about halfway through the set, these guys approached me and Shannon. They had these black shirts on and the earpieces and that whole thing. They look like Secret Service or whatever. And they start walking towards us, and then they came right up to me and Shannon, and they were like, hey, you two, come with us. And we're like, oh no, we're friends of the like the band invited us. And they go, no, I'm Neil's guy, and like he knows you guys are here, and he wants you to watch the drum solo from the stage. And so me and Shannon are like, are you fucking kidding me? So we go to the stage, right? I'm going to try to fast forward through this whole story, but we go to the stage, and now you gotta understand one thing here. Me and Shannon like grew up with Rush, as a lot of us did, right? But yeah, I'm a drummer. Like I studied this guy. You don't even understand. I dropped out of school for Rush Records. I quit relationships. I quit family. I pretty much gave up everything to learn the Exit Stage Left record, note for note, moving pictures, signals, hemisphere. Like I was a Rush-aholic. And I think the only time I went to high school actually is because I was on the part of the Exit Stage Left record where Xanadu in the trees, and there's this part in the middle section where he uses wood blocks, and I didn't have wood blocks. So I went to school that day, and I went to the music room, and I stole the wood blocks and I wrapped it in a blanket and walked. I mean, like, who's not? It's ridiculous. Anyways, so back to the show, and now we're on the stage, and we're holy shit, right? Like we're there with 15-year-olds. We got our Rush hats on and our catalog and our shirt, and they gave us a pair of his drumsticks, and we're literally like 8 feet away from him doing this. I'm freaking out. So as you guys know, or if you've seen Rush in the last so many years, they'll do like a 75-minute set or whatever it is. Then they take like a 30-minute break, and then they come back and do like another 45 minutes or so of hits, and like that's how they do it. So on the break, that dude, Mike, came up to us and he said, hey, come back here. The guys are taking a quick 30-minute break. You need a beer or whatever. So we're on the back deck, and that dude, Mike, said, hey, you come with me. So he left Shannon there. He brought me inside the trailer, and he goes, you need a beer or anything like that? And I go, no, I'm good, man. We're just chilling, And he goes, all right, I'll be right back. So I'm standing there, and I'm sitting on the couch, and maybe, I don't know, 5-10 minutes goes by, and I'm looking around the room, and I'm wondering, why the fuck am I in this trailer by myself? And I start noticing, I go, that's a really big pair of fucking sneakers. And then I look over and I go, okay, that's an electronic drum set. And then I go, oh my fucking God, I'm in Neil Peart's dressing room. And as soon as I thought it, he walked in the door. And it caught me off guard, and he's giant anyways. I mean, tall guy. He's got to be 6'5" or whatever. And I immediately stood up like, at attention, and he just goes, hey, Sully, good to meet you. And he put out his hand, right? And I looked at him, and I went, and I just stared at him like a goof. And he goes, you okay, man? And I go, and in my mind, I was like, of course I'm okay. But my face went like this. Like that. I couldn't speak. I was just just staring at him, and I went like, in my mind, I'm going, of course I'm okay, but no words would come out. And I'm sitting there in my mind going, Sully, you fucking donkey, say something. This is ridiculous. Because I went back to being a 15-year-old kid in my bedroom listening to Rush records my entire life and studying this guy. And I just didn't know how to express how much he had meant to me and what a drummer I had become because of him in a few words. So finally I just, and I came out of it and I go, I'm so sorry, and we talked a bit and then over time we had become friends and I met him a few times and I even tried to get him to play drums on that track, but of course he was like, you'll understand one day when you're in your 50s and you're touring, when you're not touring, you want to just be home. And now I get it, Neil. So that was one of my biggest geek moments I've ever had. I've never froze up like that. And I've met a lot of celebrities, and I never froze like that in my life.
Aaron said you did that when you met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because he smelled really bad. He hadn't showered in a week.
Well, I want to thank both of you for hanging out for this period of time, sharing memories and stories. And it's just it's so intriguing for me, even as a fan, to hear your thoughts and your thoughts about how the music's created and what the experience is right for you guys. So thank you for spending some time here on Riff on It. We appreciate it very much.
Of course, man.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Sully.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it, buddy.